Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first session of Spirals and Labyrinths, which I have run once before, around about this time last year, and it was a really interesting course with a sort of slightly different flavour than the courses I've run before. So I'm excited to be running it again. It's proved just as popular this year, which is lovely, and we will be spinning lots of parts of circles. We don't spin so many full circles as we would do in a normal geometry course, because spirals and labyrinths are made up of parts of circles, but we will be getting lots of compass practice, so please don't worry if you're someone who's quite new to this sort of artwork, compasses and so on. Just got someone in the waiting room. There we are. So I'll introduce myself because I know I've got some new faces. And so I'm Clarissa. I am a maths teacher, part-time, and I think it was in about 2018, I discovered geometric art through Samira Mian, who is an Islamic geometer, a fabulous sort of gift to the art world, really. And she got me really enthused about it. And then in lockdown, in August 2020, I offered my first online class. So I've been teaching online since then. I've been doing geometric art since 2018. And it's I just feel so blessed that it's come into my life, because it's such a fantastic art form. It's so accessible to anyone. You really just, as long as you just take your time and you're careful and you follow the instructions, you can produce the most wonderful patterns anyone can. So it's so enjoyable to teach it, because I see so much success and so many happy customers. So hopefully you'll be happy today as well. So I'm going to hand over to you now and ask you to just pop a little brief introduction into the chat, because the chat will be shared with all participants, those who couldn't make it as well. And it's always really lovely to see where everyone's from. Let's have a look. From Arizona, Oxford, sort of sunny, Wembley, lovely, Yorkshire, Missouri, USA, UK again, West Sussex, lovely. So lots of you from the UK and lots from US. I've scheduled the course at a different day to sort of cater to US participants a bit more than I normally do. Normally I have a very few who are up very early in the morning. Oh, someone down the road from Cambridge, lovely. From France, fantastic. From Israel, hello. Hi, Emma from Ipswich down the road. Oh, this is fabulous. So from all over the world, how lovely. From Sweden, more from the US. That's great. It's always so exciting. Zoom has opened up our world, I think. Okay, so I've got someone in the waiting room. Let's just... Okay, so I have a little prompt sheet just off the screen we'll refer to just to keep me on track. So I'm going to briefly talk through how the Zoom session works, just because I may have some of you who've not done my Zoom classes before. So essentially, I ask everyone to stay muted and to encourage you to ask questions in the chat, because I've got quite good at keeping half an eye on the chat when I'm demonstrating. So if you need me to repeat anything, or you have a question about something, pop it in the chat. But if you feel that I haven't seen your query and it's quite urgent, you'd like me to redo a construction or something like that, then do feel free to unmute and just ask. That's absolutely fine. So as I said before, the chat will be shared with all participants, and it's including those who aren't here. And I encourage you, if you have any links or any information to share that you feel other participants would benefit from, then please pop the links in the chat, because it becomes a really useful log of various hyperlinks and so on information, because I know I've probably got quite a knowledgeable bunch in the audience, and it's great if everyone can benefit from that. So that's the Zoom session. Microphones off. Videos, you're welcome to have them on or off. It's always quite nice to just have a few of you with your videos on, because I can sort of gauge that I'm going at the right speed, but you're absolutely welcome to have the videos off. We'll have a short 15-minute break sort of halfway through-ish, depending on when we sort of finish the pattern we're working on. And occasionally, more often than not, the sessions run over a little bit. I think the last time I run this, I think I said the sessions were 2.5 hours long, and then they crept over that. So I think I've said the sessions are 3 hours long this time. So they'll be round about 3 hours. And you will receive an email. I always say within 48 hours to account for technical hitches, but usually it's around about 6 to 8 hours after the session's ended. You will receive an email with the link to the video, which is hosted privately on YouTube, so it's not available for the general public, and a link to a folder of resources. The folder of resources has a time limit on it, so I think I usually leave it available for 2 months, and in that time you please download everything in the folder that you want to keep, download it onto your laptop or onto a hard drive so that you have it for whenever you need it. I do also put copies of the video into the folder, and that's because I have some participants who have unreliable internet access and have asked in the past if they could have copies of the videos to download. But the videos are such huge files, there's no need to download them because you can access them via the YouTube link whenever you need. So that's just an option for some. I think that might be everything. Oh, one last thing. YouTube, the nice thing about hosting on YouTube is that YouTube auto-generates subtitles in all languages after about 48 hours. So if you are someone for whom English is not your first language, then if you wait a couple of days and log on and enable closed captions, you should be able to then choose to translate your closed captions to any language you wish. So it's one of the benefits of hosting on YouTube. Okay, I think that's everything. Has anyone got any questions about? I don't think there's any questions in the chat. Okay. Oh, and the last thing, we'll have a short sharing session at the end. So if you would like to, no pressure at all, but if you would like to, it's always lovely to see a few people's work. And if anyone's done anything unusual or added some colour or something like that, it's always lovely to see. So yeah, so I think that's the blurb about how the course runs. The next thing I'm going to do is just briefly go over yeah, I'll go over the breakdown of the course first, and then we'll have a quick look at equipment. So 4 sessions, and we're going to start, it's like a little journey through time. So we're going to start right at the very beginning, about 12,000 years ago, in sort of Neolithic / Bronze Age sort of period of time, quite a large period of time. And we're going to look at spiral motifs, and we're going to start with a simple spiral structure just so that you get to understand how the spiral is created from circular arcs. We need at least 2 circle centres to offset the spiral so that instead of getting a circle, we actually get something that moves its way round. So we'll start there, and we'll learn how to expand the number of centres to our spiral. So we will do a 2-centre spiral to start with. Then we'll do a 2-centre double spiral, which will prepare us for creating the Newgrange triskelion at the end of the session. And then we'll have a look at creating a spiral from a hexagon key, from a 6-point spiral. And then we will, I think that, yes, and then we'll do the Newgrange triple spiral. Now, yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I figured out how to do a slightly different type of triskelion. And I really want to share that one as well, but I don't think I'll have time in the session to share that one. So, so what I'm going to do is over the course of next week, I will record a bonus session so that you get to draw both types of triskelion, and we'll have a closer look in a second at the way the 2 differ. One of them can be coloured in, which we all get excited about, and one of them is more of a sort of labyrinth. It's a single path all the way around. So we'll have a look at that in a short while. And then next session, we will have a look at how to adjust essentially the same sort of underlying construction, a spiral from different centres, And we'll have a look at how to construct the Cretan, the classical Cretan labyrinth from that. And that's the one you will have seen. It's the one that's, generally speaking, when people talk about a labyrinth, that's the one that comes to mind. And we'll look at how to create the key and that will allow you to make ever larger Cretan labyrinths. And then we'll use that knowledge along with our spiral knowledge to create a really beautiful spiral labyrinth, which sort of circles in right to the center. And that's a really interesting one. It's an Indian labyrinth, and there's quite a nice myth that lies behind it. And then we'll move on to the big boys. Basically, in session 3, we'll have a look at medieval cathedral labyrinths. And we will look first of all at the Chart pavement labyrinth. And it will take most of the session to construct that one. We will also be constructing the little 6 sort of petaled motif at the center, which is quite tricky because it's not actually 6-fold symmetry, it's actually 13-fold symmetry. So we will have a look at constructing that as well. And then towards the end of session 3, we might start the underlying grid for the second cathedral labyrinth, which is the labyrinth. It's similar to the labyrinth at Amiens, but the one at Amiens Cathedral is just too much to do, I think, in a single session. So if you like, it's a scaled down version, and it's found at Cologne Cathedral in Germany. So we'll be drawing that one together, and that's an octagonal labyrinth. And then finally, we're going to finish with a beautiful contemporary labyrinth based on the Vesica Piscis. And that one can be done in 2 ways. So we'll look at 2 ways of creating that final labyrinth. So we'll end right back in sort of present day, looking at a contemporary version of the labyrinth. So that's the journey that awaits. I hope you're feeling excited, and I haven't got any questions in the chat. So I think I'm going to deep breath because I'm using new tech today. I'm going to hopefully be able to switch over seamlessly to my overhead camera. Let's have a look. And I may need to ask you whether the hand that I'm wiggling is my left or my right, because I might have to do some mirroring of the video. So all good so far. Is this my left hand? Yes, okay, good, yay! We have liftoff. Okay, brilliant. Right, I'm going to now talk about equipment, because I realise I may have some people who are sort of new to geometry or feeling less experienced. So you will need the basics. You'll need a ruler, plastic ones are best. You'll need a pencil. A normal pencil is fine, but you might, if you become someone who gets the bug, then you might want to invest in a clutch pencil of some sort or a mechanical pencil in future. And you will need an eraser. There'll be some lines we draw that you may want to erase afterwards. And then you'll need your compass. Now, I will discuss the compass at greater length when we do our warm-up pattern in a few minutes' time. But you may have one like this, which comes with a pen attachment. Now I'm going to ask you all to construct in pencil, but you can either pop your pencil into the pen attachment and do it that way, or you may have a lead that came with the compass, and in which case you can use your lead. But when people first get a compass like this with a lead in it, it's often a mystery how to sharpen it. So if you have got a lead like this, then it can be sharpened in 2 ways. You can either sharpen the lead, you'll notice it's got a wedge, and you can either sharpen it on some sandpaper or a nail file, something that's got a rough surface, and you literally just move it back and forth and sharpen the wedge back to a point. Or you can get little lead sharpeners. You may have got one that came with your compass. So this is like a tiny baby sharpener. Or you can get these sharpeners. This is from Stapler. And this is actually, if you've got your lead in a pencil, you can use a sharpener like this to sharpen your lead. but I think your lead will probably stay sharp for today's session, so it's not so don't worry too much about that. You might also have some spare lead, so if you do get a blunt end on your lead, you can replace it. So if you have any questions, remember, pop them in the chat. The last thing that can be useful, especially if you are getting on, advancing in years like me, I use this all the time, is a little magnifying glass just to help with compass point positioning, because positioning of the compass point is really the most important step each time you place it. If you are someone who wants to work on your accuracy, then that's where to begin. And a magnifying glass can just help you make sure that you're placing your compass point in the right place. And last of all, if you do get the bug, then this little thing here, a mono zero eraser, if I got that upside down, is a fab piece of kit. It's like a sort of clickable pencil, except what comes out is a tiny little eraser. And that can be useful if you do quite complicated patterns and you just want to get in and erase little bits. So I might pop that in the chat for everyone, because it's a really nice bit of kit. Tombow mono zero eraser. And that's come out as tomboy. It's definitely not tomboy, tombow. There you go. Tombow mono zero eraser. So I think that's everything. You may want coloured pencils today. You may want a pen if you want to outline certain sections of your pattern and make them more prominent. You might have a felt tip pen, or a fine liner like this is fine. Even if all you've got is a biro, that will work. Okay, now if you have any questions, you can please do ask in the chat. But if not, I think that, looking at my prompt sheet, I think we might be all right to get started on our first warm-up pattern. Do you ever use the arm on the compass, says Alex? Do you mean the extension bar that sort of sticks out the side and drops down like that? Yes, I have used it a few times when I'm working on A2 paper, if I'm doing extra large circles, but I don't use it very often. I find if I'm working on A3, I don't need to use the extension bar. The compass sort of spreads wide enough that I can get the largest circle I need onto the paper. If you do have one with an extension bar, they usually go in the leg with the point, I think, because they create a second point. I think they might go in the leg with the point. Well, you'll see if it's got a point on the end of it, then it's to replace this point. So you'd put it in here and it would extend the length of the point. Okay, so we're going to start with just a really simple warm-up pattern, but I like to start here because it gives me the opportunity to talk through some little tips for how to use your compass and how to improve your accuracy. So we're going to start by drawing a pattern called the Seed of Life, which I know some of you have met several times before. So I'm just going to move this back. I will be working on A3 paper. If you're working on A4, I put both the measurements for A3 and A4 into the chat. And we always start our geometry by either placing a horizontal starting line or a vertical starting line. And for this first pattern, we're going to place a vertical starting line. So to do that, we're going to make two small marks, one in the top half of the paper and one in the bottom half of the paper, that are halfway in from one side. So I'm going to place my ruler. I'm placing mine on the left edge of the paper, place the 0 on the left edge. And if you're on A3, halfway is more or less 15 centimetres. It's 14.85 if you want to be particular, but 15 is fine. So you're going to make two marks 15 centimetres in, one above and one below. And if you're on A4, you'll find that it's 10.5 centimetres in. So I'm just going to pop that in. So if you're on A4, it's 10.5. And if you're on A3, it's, let's go with 15. So And you are going to do this lightly in pencil. I will do it more boldly in pencil because I need you to see it more clearly. So there's my two little marks, 15 centimetres in from one side. And I don't want to use that pencil today. I'll use this one. And then when drawing a line with your ruler, I find it quite useful. Essentially, you've got to leave the tiniest of gaps between the ruler and where you want the line to appear, because you've got to account for the width of your pencil. So to help judge that gap, it can be quite useful to place your pencil. I've just someone in the waiting room. It can be quite useful to place your pencil tip first. So I'm going to place my pencil tip on the point that I want to go through, and then butt my ruler up to the point, and that accounts for the width of the lead. And then I can sort of pivot my ruler around that point until I'm going through the other mark on my sheet. And then I'm putting a bold line on, but you will put a faint line on. Okay. And then the next job is to find halfway up the page. I'll just move my sheet of paper up for that. So now we're measuring from the bottom of the page halfway up. So place your 0 line at the very bottom, move your ruler up to your vertical line, and on A3, on A4 we now want 15, and on A3 we now want 21. And if you're on US letter size or the slightly larger version, I'm not sure what that's called, then I'm sure you're able to work out your middles. So 21 centimetres up on A3. And now that's my starting point. I'll make mine a bit larger so that you can see it. Okay. The next thing is measuring out your starting radius. So this pattern is on A4, your starting radius is going to be 4 centimetres. And on A3, your starting radius can go up to 6. You can do anything from 4, let's say 4 to 5.5, otherwise you encroach on the edge a bit. So 4 to 5.5 centimetres is fine for A3. And to measure your radius out, I'm just going to zoom in a bit. To measure out a radius, now I'm working in pen so that you can see what I'm doing, but you will be working in pencil. If you are using your pen holder to put your pencil in, then I always recommend nearly closing your compass, inserting your pencil until its tip and the compass point are lined up nicely, and then securing it. And then that way, when you open and close your compass, you find you don't get a funny difference in level between the point and the tip. And then the next thing, I'm just going to talk about opening and closing it, especially if you've got a brand new piece of kit and you're not quite sure how to use it. So you may have a compass that has a wheel at the very centre, and that's the fine adjustment wheel. And some compasses just have a fine adjustment wheel. But if you have a compass like this with 2 little bars on the surface of the legs, then if you squeeze those bars down, you have a rapid adjustment lever as well. So just be aware that's what those 2 are for. I always recommend finishing off with a twist of the fine-tune wheel, because sometimes when you open with the quick adjustment, it sort of hops, it skips, it doesn't quite latch into place. So a quick twist of the fine-tune wheel just to secure everything. Okay, so that's opening and closing. And then measuring out a radius. If you pop your ruler in front of you, you're going to place the compass point on the 0 line. Now, plastic rulers are great because if you press quite firmly, you can make a little hole just above your 0 line. So I press quite firmly, and there's a little hole there, and every time I want to measure out a radius, that little dip, I can locate it really quickly, and my compass point just sinks into it. And then you're going to open up, I'll just pull this down a bit. And then either by squeezing your fine-tune wheel bars or by opening your wheel, you're going to open up to your desired radius. So I'm on A3, I'm going to open up to 5.5 centimetres. Okay. And then we're going to spin our first circle. I'm just going to move this up a bit and out a bit, I think, or the wrong way. That's better. Okay, so if you remember, I said that the most important part of the process is placing that compass point. So as carefully as possible, we're going to place the compass point on that halfway up notch we made earlier. And then when I'm doing that, I tend to hold the leg of the compass with the point on it with my hand. And then I support the compass with my other hand and move my dominant hand up to the twizzle at the top. And essentially I'm twisting from the twizzle at the top. Now I'm left-handed, so I tend to twizzle anti-clockwise. You're most likely to be right-handed, so you might find that it's more comfortable to twizzle clockwise. And putting a little bit of pressure down that leg with the point so that it doesn't skip out, I then twist my compass with the twizzle and spin that first circle. Okay, first circle spun. And now, the reason we've put a vertical on really is to orient the pattern. So it provides us with our first set of intersections for this pattern, which falls naturally out of the geometry of a circle. So we're going to place compass point on that first intersection, the north intersection of the circle with that vertical we put on. And again, be really careful when you place that compass point. You can relax a bit when you swing. A little bit of pressure through the leg of the compass, and just check that the pen tip or the pencil lead is going through the centre of that circle. And then when you're happy, you can commit to drawing a second circle. I'm just going to lift this up a bit. See if I can refocus. Okay. And then we're going to do the same from the southernmost point. Compass point on that intersection with the vertical. Double check that we're going to be kissing that top circle. And when you're happy, you can pop your second circle on. And we already have a rather lovely pattern emerging. These three overlapping circles create these lovely almonds, horizontal almond shapes, which are called vesica pisces or mandalas. And we're going to identify each almond shape, and we're going to look at its tips, and each tip provides another pair of intersections. And we're going to use each tip, applying the compass point as carefully as possible, checking that we've now got two reference points that our pen needs to go through, the centre of the first circle and the centre of the top circle. When you're happy, you can spin circle number 4. And then you can simply work your way around this set. We've got 3 more intersections to go. So I'm going to move down to the bottom left vesica pisces tip. Double check that I seem to be heading in the right direction. You can make micro adjustments if you need to. That's my 2 on the left, and I'm going to finish my 2 on the right. And this is a great pattern to practice if this is something you're new to. it's one of the best patterns really to do quick and easy accuracy practice, because the more and more accurate you get, the pointier the tips of the 6-petaled flower at the centre. And there we have the seed of life. And I did a recent course on medieval geometry, and when I was researching for that course last year when I first ran it, I found out that these patterns, they appear in all cultures all over the world from the earliest of times, this pattern, because it's naturally just arises from spinning a circle. But I found that in English churches, you often find this pattern, or just the flower at the centre, carved into to the stone of churches near the doorways, and it's said to have been a sort of protective mark, a little prayer, if you like, for protection. And they're called either daisy wheels, which is rather lovely, or witches' marks, because they were seen as a sort of almost a protective amulet almost. So we have our little starting pattern. If you want to, you can erase your central line. Actually, one thing I will say is when you work in pencil and you erase your lines, you will inadvertently erase parts of the pattern as well. So if you do want to erase your central vertical and you're erasing parts of your circle at the same time, then if you've preserved your radius on your compass, you can just simply redraw those little sections that you've erased to tidy everything up. Okay, so there we are, our warm-up pattern. I'm just looking in the chat and I can't see any questions. So what I'm going to do now is come back face to face and I have a little introduction for everything's labelled differently. There we are. Okay, so I have a little introduction for you, a little PowerPoint. It's mainly just images of circles and spirals to get us inspired. So let's have a look. So let's see, how do I share screen on a Mac? Will it be available? Yes. Okay. Do unmute and yell if you can't see it, but hopefully that can be seen by everyone. So first session 1, spirals. So we're just going to have a little bit of a background to them, and then we'll look at some pretty pictures. I'm just going to move this bar out of the way. Okay, so spirals. So circles and spirals appear everywhere around us in the natural world, and the growth pattern, almost like sort of the creative force or the underlying creative force really, seems to want to grow in a spiral form. So you will see spirals everywhere and circles everywhere in nature. And it's quite likely that this is what inspired our early human ancestors to carve these motifs. Some of their earliest carvings were circles and spirals. So essentially, after notches, hatches and crosses, circles and spirals are the earliest geometric forms made by humans. And spirals in particular started appearing in human decorative art since approximately 10,000 BCE, so 12,000 years ago. And then they became more and more common as we went through the Neolithic period into the early Bronze Age, which is about, I think, 5,000 years ago. And we can only ever, when we think about the past, our modern interpretation onto it. But it is said that the spiral was meant to symbolise a journey, a sort of path inward, perhaps, a journey of self-discovery, or birth and rebirth, evolution, that kind of idea. And it's still used in that way today. So, time to look at some pictures. So the perfect circle is evident every day if you're lucky enough not to live in the UK, because I can't see it today, but our sun is a perfect circle. So our ancestors would have seen exactly the same sun and seen this geometric form. And of course, we look out of a perfect circle to see the world around us and take it in. So circles everywhere. If you drop a stone into a pond, you get this lovely pattern of concentric circles. There are circular animal forms. If you cut through a tree, you get this lovely concentric circle pattern. Beautiful circular flowers. And as we know, we often see spiral forms in flowers as well, and in plants. So absolutely stunning spiral form in the plant world. Shells, beautiful spirals. Millipedes or centipedes or whatever that is in its protective spiral. More lovely shell spirals. And even storms and cyclones have this natural spiral form. And I think this is a cucumber frond, gorgeous spiral. And an ammonite. And as you are probably aware, the sunflower seed head is this set of concentric spirals. And we know that the Fibonacci numbers and the golden ratio is behind this growth pattern that we see all over nature. Pine cones have a similar growth pattern to sunflower seed heads. And the nautilus is often pulled out of the bag when anyone wants to talk about the golden ratio. It's not actually a golden spiral, but it is related to the golden spiral. It has phi is involved. The golden ratio is involved in its growth factor, but it's not quite just phi. It's not quite as simple as that. And then looking out on a macro scale, our galaxies seem to exhibit this spiral sort of force. And then into the micro, our DNA is structured in this spiral form. So it really is, if you like, the fundamental pattern. So we are now going to look at some early spiral art. So notes for this, here we are. So in fact, actually on the previous slide, I'll just say this is a galvanized steel sculpture by Charles Jenks, and it's the centerpiece of the International Centre for Life. And then this is mammoth bone plaque found with the burial of a boy in southeastern Siberia, and it's been dated to about 23,000 to 19,000 years old. And we can see that sort of concentric circular design. Actually, I think it might even be a spiral, seems to spiral out from the center. These are cup and ring marks. So the cups are the indentations on the surface of the stone, and then there are concentric rings about them. And they seem to be sort of a network of connections, cups to cups and so on. These are Neolithic and these are in the UK, but they're found all over the world. And this is a cup and ring mark in Botany. I think this might be the UK as well. And we can see a lot of concentric rings with this line that goes into the centre. So they're starting to look a little bit like labyrinths. This is one of the stones at Newgrange Passage Tomb in Ireland. And you can see these lovely spiral motifs. So this has been dated to about 3,200 BCE, so about 5,000 years ago. We can see some cup and ring marks as well here, and some sort of a hatching pattern on the side. Absolutely stunning. And this is the stone at the front of the tomb. And again, these wonderful spiral forms carved in. And then this is the one we're going to draw a geometric version of it. This is the triple spiral, and this is in the chamber. And on the solstice, the light, sun trises directly through the opening in the chamber, and it shines in and it illuminates this spiral. So this is the triple triskelion spiral that we will be drawing at the end of today's session. These are similar time, so approximately 5,000 years ago, but these are in Malta, so a Neolithic temple in Malta. So these spiral forms seem to be arising all over the world, and whether these cultures had contact with each other or not, I don't know. But certainly this spiral form, I suppose because it's seen all over the place in nature, became an early human motif. This is from America. This is indigenous art. I don't have a date for this. It's found in Arizona, a lovely spiral form and some animal forms here. I think this is much earlier. It's not as late as the Neolithic stuff. And then we'll look at some pottery as well. Absolutely amazing stuff. So this is 4,000 years BCE, so about 6,000 years old. And this was found in Romania. And you can see these stunning spiral forms, sort of S-shaped spirals that sort of interlink and curve around each other. This is from Egypt, and it's around about the same time. And we can see these wonderful single spirals. So we're going to learn to draw one like this, but ours will be geometric. This is clearly hand drawn, hand painted. This one, when I first saw this one, I thought it was spirals, but actually it's little concentric circle rings, a bit like cup and ring marks, which are then joined with these straight lines to make this stunning pattern. This is early Bronze Age, so this is again about 5,000 years ago. This is, oh, have I lost my note? Oh no, here we go. This is 1,700 BCE, so 3,000 to 4,000 years old, and this is from Greece, and this is a little spiral motif here. I love these little sort of circle packing motif as well on the side. And then we'll finish with this Celtic armband, date around 1200 BCE, so about 2,500-ish years ago, and this beautiful spiral motif. And I just love the way the armband is all one single piece of metal. So this is bronze, so from the Bronze Age, and it was worn, I think, down the side of the arm. So there you go, that's your inspiration. And I'll just check the chat. I don't see the chat when I'm screen sharing, so I'll just check there's no questions. Right, suitably inspired, I hope. We're going to make our first spiral. So I will teach you the simplest spiral, essentially, and that will enable you to see the underlying structure, and hopefully you'll be able to go on and create lots more spirals. Let's have a look. So you'll need a fresh sheet of paper, A3 or A4. And I'll just find my template so that I know what I'm doing. And we're going to start with a horizontal this time. So I'm going to switch my camera over. And yeah. Okay, lift it up a bit. There we go. And okay, so we're going to start with a horizontal this time, which means we need to make 2 marks halfway up the page. So, so for that, we're going to start with 2 marks measured from the bottom of the page. And I can see I'm all wonky. Let me get that bit straighter. Okay, so if you're on A3, we're going to make a mark on the left and the mark on the right, 21 centimetres. And if you're on A4, it's 15. So I'm just going to put those in. So 15 up on A4. And if you're on A3, you'll soon become familiar with these measurements. it's 21 up. Okay, so as before, I'm going to do one on the left, 21, and you're making light marks and a light horizontal line. 21. And then remember, pencil lead down first onto the mark, and then butt your ruler up and pivot it round until you have it lined up with maybe a smidgen of a gap to account for your pencil lead. And then a horizontal line that goes from side to side. A bit of a wobble going. Okay, and then as before, we want to find the centre. So 0 on either the left or the right hand side. And hopefully you've remembered your measurements. Halfway in on A3 is 15-ish, and on A4 is 10.5. And a little notch. To indicate your halfway starting point. Now, it's going to be a bit of a challenge if you're new to constructing, because we start with a very small first radius, and the smaller you go with your compass, the fiddlier it gets. So we're going to start, in fact, I'm just going to double check, with a 1 centimetre radius. Now it grows quite quickly. You only need to do a semicircle with a 1 centimetre radius. So just take your time. Make sure the hardest thing is that your point wants to skip out. So just make sure your point is, you've got a nice bit of pressure on your compass point when you place it on your centre and as you spin. So measuring out 1 centimetre on your ruler, compass point on the 0, you may have your little notch from before, and adjust your radius down to a tiny 1 centimetre. It doesn't have to be exact, but tiny 1 centimetre. Okay. And we're going to start at the centre, and every time we start at the centre, we're going to make a semicircle on the top half of our horizontal line, which can be thought of if you did the medieval geometry course and you drew the arch. We talked about how the arch emerges from the springing line, so we can think of this as our springing line for our spiral. So I'm going to place my compass point on that centre mark, and then I'm just making a semicircle on the top half, little baby semicircle. And then I'm going to label my centre as point number 1. You can do this if you wish, if you think it'll help. And then the right hand intersection with the horizontal of my semicircle, I'm going to label as point number 2. And every time I use point number 2, I'm going to be drawing a semicircle under my springing line. So let's move now to point number 2. Might be an idea to just pop a little hole in there so you can find it each time. And then we're going to open up our compass, the width of our semicircle now, because we want to continue this spiral. So as carefully as you can, sometimes it can help to just put a little dot of lead, of graphite or pen down, just to check that you're kind of plumb where you want to be. We're now going to continue our spiral. I might zoom down a bit. Oh no, maybe I won't. I'll leave it for now. And you're going to place your semicircle under the springing line because we went from point number 2. Okay. And now we're simply going to move back to point number 1 and continue with a semicircle that sits on top, but we need to open our radius up to continue that spiral. So open your radius up now to pick up where you left off. Maybe a little dab down just to check you're in the right place. And when you're happy, semicircle on top. You just continue this process. If you're on A4, you won't be able to get so much on. A3, you can make quite a large spiral. And we just keep switching centres. And this is known as a two-centre regular spiral. And it's an approximation of an Archimedean spiral, and I will explain that in a sec. So I need to do an under one, so I move to point number 2, centre number 2, extend my compass, little dot down to see I'm in the right place. I think I could be a little bit further out there. And then to point 1, open up. This really lovely spiral, but you will notice it looks a bit squished. The more centres you add, the rounder your spiral becomes. So because we've got a two-centre spiral, it's got a slightly squashed form. Now I'm just going to put one more on, and then I'm going to complete mine. In fact, I might do it now. I'm going to complete mine with a full circle, which will then enclose the whole spiral. So I'm moving, I need to do one on top. So I'm moving my compass point back to centre number 1, opening out. And at this stage, I'm happy with the size I've got. And when you're happy with the size you've got, you can finish off with a full circle. And that just closes it up rather nicely. Okay, and that's how spirals are made. And then again, like before, you can erase your horizon line if you wish. Probably a bit fiddlier to redraw all the bits because you need all the different radiuses. I think I might leave my centre one on. So I said I was going to explain why it's an Archimedean spiral. So Archimedes wrote a treatise on spirals. He was clearly fascinated by them. And he defined a spiral as being the motion made when a line was revolving around a point, a centre point, and a point on the line was moving out from the centre at a steady speed. So as the line turns and the point moves out, a bit tricky to do, the point gets further and further away from the centre, but at regular intervals. So you get this spiral with a, what's the word I'm looking for? With a regular path interval. So the path interval is the same each time. And so you might want to label your spiral. So it's a 2-point centre spiral. And it's an approximate Archimedean spiral. And essentially, it's the spiral that makes up the triskelion at Newgrange, except the triskelion has a second spiral doing the equal and opposite thing inside the first. So it's a double spiral. So next, we're going to do another 2-point centre spiral. We could just add to this one, but I think it's quite nice to keep this one for reference. So we're going to redraw, but we're going to do 2 spirals at one time. So I'm just keeping an eye on the chat, like the groove on a... Yes, that's right, Dina. What a great spot. Okay, so fresh piece of paper. And we're going to start in exactly the same way, except our centre is not going to be one of our keys. If you think this is the key that we're starting with, a 2-point key. So this time do mark the centre, but mark it lightly, and actually we'll be starting either side of the centre, but horizontal in the same way. Okay. Let's lift this up a bit while I measure. Okay. Just refocus. I may put my overhead light on in a short while. It's looking a bit gloomy on screen. So 2 marks halfway up, same as before, one on the left, one on the right, 21 centimetres on A3, 15 on A4. And a nice light horizontal. Mine is firmer so that you can see it. And then we're going to lightly mark the centre. Lightly mark the centre. We need it right at the end to enclose our spiral in a circle if you wish to. So lightly mark your centre, 15 in on A4 or 10.5 in on, 10.5 in on A4 or 15 in on A3. And then I'm going to zoom in. And we're now going to notch a point. Let me see. 2-point centre spiral. I'm just going to measure. Yeah, so we're going to notch a point 0.5 centimetre to the left. So I'm placing my ruler on. Hopefully you can see that all right. Might zoom in a little bit more. And refocus. So I'm placing, what I'm doing is I'm placing the 0.5 centimetre mark on my centre. And then on the left of that, at the 0, I'm making another mark. Okay. And that is my first key. Number 1. Actually, I'm just thinking, do we? No, that's fine. And then we're going to go back to that tiny radius again of 1 centimetre. Yeah. So a tiny 1 centimetre radius again. And this time we're going to be doing 2 semicircles with this tiny radius, one above and one below, but we'll start with the top one because we're working from key number 1. So once you've got your 1 centimetre radius, place your compass point on the left hand mark, the one you've just made, key number 1. And do a semicircle on the top half of the springing line. And the right hand intersection of that semicircle with the horizontal line is key number 2. So I'm going to label mine as 2. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place exactly the same semicircle, but below the line, centred at 2. So compass point on 2. And we're going to pop a semicircle under the line. So this is the one that's weaving in inside the first spiral, but going in the opposite direction kind of thing. And now we're going to alternate between 1 and 2. So I'm going to go back to point 1. I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm going to go back to point 1, and now I'm extending out to meet the spiral coming up on the right. Little dot down to check I'm in the right place. And I'm going to, because I'm at point 1, I'm going to pop a semicircle above. And then I'm going to move back to point 2, and I should find I have the correct measure already to continue the inner spiral below. So I'm at point 2, so a semicircle under the horizon line. I'm just going to lift my camera up now. Okay, so hopefully you're getting the hang of it. I'm now going to move back to point 1, and that's the above the line semicircle. I'm trying to find the hole each time, so find the same hole each time with your compass point. And now I'm opening up a little bit wider to meet my spiral. Moving to point 2, no need to adjust, just need to find that hole. To continue, semicircle below. Back to point 1 and open up. Starting to look lovely. Oh, did I forget to do my point? Oh no, that's next. Then point 2 to do the lower half. Check the waiting room. Until I have sudden moments of panic that someone's been stuck in waiting room for half an hour. Okay, then back to point 1 to do the top, opening up. Back to number 2. Can't find that hole. There it is. To do the lower hole. And if you're on A4, you might be sort of approaching the edges of your sheet. So if you're on A4 and your spiral is the size that you're happy with, if you just pause, and I will show you how to complete it, how to enclose it in a sec. So I'm just going to extend mine a couple more times. Back to 2 for the underneath. Over to 1. Back to 2. I think I'll do one more at the top and the bottom. So this is going to be my last one on top. And my last one on the bottom. Okay, very groovy. And then you can leave it open or you can use your centre to enclose it in a circle, but your centre might not be quite central because we measured with a ruler for our starting mark, and measuring with a ruler is never very accurate. So I'm going to place my compass point on what I think is the centre, but very lightly, so I don't make too much of a hole. I'm going to open my compass out to meet the spiral on the right. And then I'm going to do like an air. I'm going to spin my compass in the air to check that I will also meet the spiral on the left. Now I'm overshooting a bit. I don't know if you can see that. And because I'm overshooting a bit, that means I need to incrementally move my compass point to the right. So literally like a sort of 0.5 millimeter. Then I'm going to remeasure, transfer over in the air. And when I'm happy that I am actually in the center of my spiral, then you can complete the spiral with a circle, a full circle that encloses the whole thing. Okay, if anyone needs that demonstrated again, I'm quite happy to go through it again. Okay. So are you at the stage, Kathy, where you're ready to do that final circle? Okay, Fabiana. Okay, so you haven't got the final circle on yet, but you have an end, a loose end on the right and a loose end on the left. So the very first mark we made at the center of the page, you're going to place your compass point there. And you're going to open your compass up to meet the loose end of spiral on either the right or the left, it doesn't matter. So, and then in the air, you're just going to spin your compass to check that it also meets the loose end of spiral on your right. Now I'm overshooting a little, which means that my mark wasn't central. It might have been central to the paper, but it wasn't central to the pattern. So because I've overshot on the left, it means my compass point is too much to the left. So I'm going to move the tiniest amount, less than 1 millimeter, to the right. Remeasure where I need to pick up from. Another little air twist to check. And then I think I'm now plumb in the center of my pattern. So I'm going to pop my circle on, which of course I've already got. Okay. So essentially, we just did a little micro adjustment, which is a really useful skill to develop as a geometer. A bit of fudging. Little micro adjustment just to make sure you're plumb in the center. Okay. Okay, what's the time actually? 4:10. I'm thinking that it might be nice to push on and do our next spiral and then have a break and then tackle the Newgrange triskelion, which is super groovy. So what I didn't say at the start when we did our warm-up pattern, our seed of life, I didn't say that actually we were going to use it 2 more times this session. So the lovely thing about it is that it's at the center of our six-fold spiral. We essentially use it to construct our hexagon key, and it's also the starting grid for our triskelion as well, so that's quite nice. A very good point. Does this spiral have a name? So it is still a 2-point center spiral, but I think, what did I call it last time? A 2-point center double spiral is essentially. It's just one spiral inside the other. So they're exactly the same spirals as before, but there's just two of them. It's like they're sort of hugging each other. Quite nice. Okay. So yes, I think we've got a little bit of time. I think we're doing quite well for time. So let's make a start on our 6-fold one. And then what I think I'll do is we'll have a short break, about 10 to 15 minutes. And then when we come back from our break, I'll give you some decorating ideas, because spirals are sort of unusual for geometric patterns in that it's a single space, because it's all one piece really. So you can't kind of colour in sections or do anything exciting like that. But what you can do is embellish the line itself. So I'll talk you through some ways that you can decorate your spirals after our break. Okay, so let's have a fresh sheet of paper. And we're going to draw the seed of life again, but a little baby one right at the centre. And this time we're going to draw it from a horizontal springing line. So, and then I'll draw your attention to how that changes the alignment of the pattern. So I'm going to lift up my overhead camera. And if we're all good to go, remember, if you ever need me to wait a minute or so, please say in the chat. So if anyone would like me to pause a sec, because I'm motoring through, if you'd like me to pause, please just say in the chat. Okay, all quiet. So I'm just going to turn my overhead camera nice and plumb. So we can start in the same way with a light horizontal halfway up the page. So you should be getting familiar with this starting construction, if you like. So 2 marks halfway up, 21 centimetres on A3 or 15 centimetres on A4. And actually we only need that horizontal in the sort of middle section of the paper. So I've lined it up with my 2 points, but actually I'm going to sort of draw it in the middle third. Nice and light, mine's heavy as always so that you can see it. So just in the middle third of the paper, that's all I need really, because we're going to do a little seed of life. And then as before, we want the centre. So 15 centimetres in. Alexa, stop. 15 centimetres in. On A3, 10.5 on A4. Your little starting notch. And then we're going to do a tiny little seed of life. Let me just check I think it's 2 centimetre radius. Yes. So then we're going to measure out, so not quite as small as our starting spirals. We're going to measure out a 2 centimetre radius. So I'm going to come down again. Compass point on 0. Open up with your fine tune wheel to approximately 2 centimetres. Okay. And then we're going to spin our first circle on that central point. Remember, as always, compass point placement is key. When you're happy, first little circle on and keep that little bit of pressure running through the leg with the point, especially when you're working with small circles. And then this time our intersections are on the horizon line. So left and right, second circle and third circle. One on the west and one on the east. And doing that little check in the air that your compass is going through the centre, that your lead is going through the centre. there's our little Vesica Pisces emerge. And then our two almond-shaped Vesica Pisces are now vertical. Last time they were horizontal. And so I'm going to use the northern tips of each almond shape to put 2 circles on, and the southern tips of each almond shape to put 2 circles on. So the last 4 circles. And because we're doing a small seed of life, it's always a bit harder to be accurate the smaller you go. So forgive yourselves if things are a little bit awry, but do that little check in the air. So try and get your circle going through those 2 centres. You can see the petals emerging of this little flower at the centre, the daisy wheel. And then the last 2 tips. Doesn't matter if it's not perfectly accurate. Your final check is, have you got all 6 petals? You know, you can stop when you've got all 6. I'll pause a sec while people are getting their seed of life on. And essentially, the tips of the daisy at the centre form our key. So rather than having 2, we've now got a 6-point centre spiral. But we need the springing line. So we're going to place 6 lines onto the pattern that will form the 6 springing lines that form the starting position for each arc of the spiral. So I'm pausing a sec. Do yell if you need a minute or so more. I think it looks gloomy because my screen brightness is down. I'll put my screen brightness up. That looks a lot less gloomy. That's good. Okay, so the difficult thing is to gauge how far out your spiral will go. I'm wondering, can we do it without? I think it's quite good to put, do you know how many centres and how many spirals? 6 centres for this one and 6 spirally arms, Caroline. Now I'm just thinking, we need, it's difficult to predict the size of the outer frame. If you're on A4, you'll get less of it on. If you're on A3, you can go larger. I think what I'm just going to say is you can extend your springing lines if you need to as you move out of the spiral. So I don't think we'll put an enclosing circle on because we don't quite know where that's going to be. So if you do your springing lines lightly in pencil, then the bits that emerge outside the spiral will be easily erased. And actually a tip is that if you use a softer pencil and press very lightly with a softer pencil, such as a B or a 2B, then you'll find that it's easier to erase. So if you have a B or a 2B handy and press very lightly, you'll find it's easier to erase than an HB or an H. Okay, so what we're going to do is, I think it's easiest to put this hexagon on first. So we're going to next need to sharpen a pencil, to be honest. I think I'll use this one. So we're going to next enclose the 6 petal tips inside a regular hexagon. So we literally just join each petal tip up with its neighbour with a straight line. So as before, pencil tip onto petal tip first, and then move your ruler up to your pencil. And work your way round. Enclosing the flower in a regular hexagon. And now what we're going to do is we're going to extend each of the hexagon sides, but only in one direction. So I'll just pause till everyone's got their hexagon on. And then I'm going to start at my leftmost, or my never each shredded, westmost point of my hexagon. And I'm going to be extending up towards the top right. So I'm going to lay my ruler, so pencil point is on that left-hand point. I'm going to lay my ruler against the line that I've already got, the edge of the hexagon. And I'm going to extend up. Let's have a look in terms of measurement, I think. I'm just going to have a look on here. Oh, that's crafty. So I think if you're on A3, you can do a 12 centimetre line. And if you're on A4, you can probably only fit in a 10 centimetre line. But it's going to be a multiple of 2, because our path length is going to be, our path width is going to be 2 centimetres, because that was our starting radius. So I've laid my ruler along that edge, and I'm going to extend up 12 centimetres. Doesn't matter if that's more or less 12 centimetres. Hopefully that makes sense. That piece of line from that point to the top is approximately 12. If you're on A4, I think 10 will fit better. And then I'm going to work my way clockwise around my hexagon. So I've got that one. I'm now going to move up to the top left petal tip, and I'm extending that line to the right by 12 centimetres, or from this point, 12 centimetres from this point. So starting here, about 12 centimetres long. And then moving to top right petal tip and extending down along that edge, a 12 centimetre line. Essentially, if you're on A3, 6 times your starting radius. And if you're on A4, I think you'll only be able to get 5 times your starting radius on. And our starting radius was 2 centimetres. And then just working our way around, line my ruler up in a different direction. So I'm now on my eastmost vertex of my hexagon. Extending that one. And then my bottom right. We've already got a bit of a spiral. And then my last one. Quite groovy already. And at this point, you might want to try and erase at least the section of your mini horizon line that emerges from the pattern, or at least lighten it, because we want to ignore this now, this horizon line. So I'm going to take mine off completely so that it doesn't confuse us when I'm demonstrating. And then the last thing before break is to create the spiral. Looking very groovy already. It's like a dancing hexagon. Right, I'm going to lift this up a little higher. Focus. Wobbling. Okay, so if anyone needs me to pause because they're still getting their hexagon arms on, please just say if you need a minute in the chat. Okay, I think we're good to go. So we need our compass. Essentially, we've already got the first part of each arm. And I'm going to just add a little bit of colour to my diagram to help you see what I mean. You don't need to do this. You might find it helpful too. But I'm essentially going to pick this. We've got a set of V shapes. Each of them comes from a different point. I'm going to shade in this one at the top right, just so I can sort of discuss it with you. Let's have a look. So essentially, we've got 6 of these V's, and each arc that we draw will be enclosed in its V. And so this V belongs to this top left petal, because that's where the pointy end of the V starts. So when I place a compass, my compass point on this top left petal tip, I'm drawing the arc in this V. And then I'm going to move my compass around to the next petal tip, but then I'll be drawing my piece of arc in the next V. Next petal tip, next V. Next petal tip, next V, and so on. Okay, and the first piece of arc's already there, but you may want to go over it again just to darken it. So I'm going to, am I going to do this in a slightly darker pen? I might do this in a slightly darker pen, just so it's a bit more prominent for you. My trusty Sharpie's out, let's have a go. Which means I'll have to remeasure my radius. So I'm just going to remeasure my radius. And that's starting. Okay, so I'm going to actually start there, my top left petal tip. I should already have a hole there from when I drew that circle. So find the same hole. And you can see that the piece of arc I need to draw in my V is already there. So I'm just going to go over it, and my Sharpie has run out of ink. No, there we go. I'm just going to go over it so that you can see what I mean. So you may want to go over it again with your compass lead, just to bring it to slightly more prominence than the other pieces of circular arc. And now I'm going to move clockwise to my next key, which is the top right petal tip. And I'm going to now identify the V shape, the next V shape, and do the piece of arc that sits in the next V shape. Okay, and then the next petal tip round. So this is my eastmost, my right-hand petal tip of my daisy. And its V is pointing down. So I'm going to do the piece of arc just in that V. I'm going to move round and highlight those 6 pieces of arc. Each time limited to the confines of the V that I'm in. Now, some of you might have figured out what to do once, if you like, the first iteration is complete. I'm just going to pause a sec. If anyone needs me to re-explain that, because you might have been catching up, do say. I'll just position that first. The first arc I made was here. And then I did the same in each V. Okay. Once you've done your 6 arcs that are already there, they're sort of the top left-hand side of each Vesica Pisces, really, is what we're sort of the overlapping Vesica Pisces. That piece of arc is what we're drawing each time. So now I've done my 6, so I'm back to my starting top left petal tip, key number 1, if you like. So compass point back on there, find the hole. And now we're opening up to meet the bit of spiral that's coming up from next door. So basically same again. I'm opening up twice as far now, and I'm going to pick up this piece of spiral. And I'm going to draw it in my V-shaped wedge only. So I place compass point at the top left petal tip and extend it up to meet the piece of spiral that was coming up from the V below. And I've just extended that piece. And then I'm keeping this radius and moving my way clockwise around the 6 keys, the 6 points of the key. And I'm locating the little hole each time. Just to maintain accuracy, use the same hole each time. So this one just sits in its V. Moving down to the right-hand side, collecting that one up. Down to the bottom right. I can sense I've got a little bit of inaccuracy in my starting seed of life. If you notice that your lines aren't quite meeting, then you can just make little incremental adjustments to your compass radius as you go. So although that might compound the problem next time. And where am I going next? So I'm always moving to a petal tip each time. Always locating the hole, far easier said than done. And drawing the piece of arc in the V that belongs to that petal tip. It's looking nice and squirrely. And then you're back to ground zero again, back to the start. And we do exactly the same thing. Extend now to meet the piece of spiral that's waiting to be extended on the right. Little dip down to make sure you're landing plumb on it. And then move your way around clockwise, round those petal tips. Carrying on the spiral sections. There it is. Now, if you are 1, 2, 3, if you're at A4, I think you can probably only get one more spin on. If you're on A3, you can get 2 more on, I think, and still have a nice frame around the edge of the paper. So starting again at point number 1, opening up. Moving around to the top right petal tip. And down. Dina. It's pretty cool. And then I've got enough room, I think, to put one more iteration on. So opening up one last time. Moving my way around. And then if you're on A4 and you've finished, you can enclose your pattern in a final circle. I'll demonstrate it in a sec. By moving your compass point back to the center of the pattern. Oops. Okay, I'm going to pause a sec before I describe how to. It's quite nice like that, actually, in wedges. But I'm also going to demonstrate how to enclose it in a final circle in a sec. That'll give people a chance to finish their arcs off. This is quite a nice one to decorate, because for this I think you get actual, yes, you get individual pieces of spiral, kind of, that you can colour in. So you can do alternating colours and so on. And theoretically, just while people are finishing off, theoretically you can use any regular, what's the word I'm looking for, polygon, any regular shape to be your key. So we could have constructed a little square, extended the lines in the same way we extended the sides of the hexagon, and you can do a 4-center spiral based on the vertices of a square. You could create a little hexagon, a pentagon, and you can do a 5-centered spiral by extending its sides. And the simplest one you can do actually from the seed of life is you could use your seed of life to draw on a triangle. Extend the triangle sides in the same way, just one side being extended each time. And you can create a 3-center spiral from a triangular starting point. So this is how the key works, essentially. Go up a side and you get a new key on. And theoretically, they're getting a little bit more circular as we add points to our key. So I'm now going to finish off by enclosing this one in a final circle. So this is up to you. You could leave it like this if you wished, or you can erase these springing lines if you wish. But to enclose it in a final circle, we need to go right back to the very first circle we drew and find the little hole . I've seen a question from Leanne, which I'll answer in a sec. So compass point right at the centre of the pattern, and then I'm going to open up to meet one of the arcs at a springing line. So I'm opening up to the right, and I'm going to meet the arc where the arc meets the springing line. And then I'm just going to air check that I'm kind of meeting other arcs at their springing lines, more or less. Not going to be perfect. And when you're happy, then you can enclose in a final circle if you wish. I think it's quite nice. Now, Leanne's asked a difficult question. Where would you close your spiral at the centre? Well, that's kind of down to the individual artist, Leanne, but I will use my, I think what's quite nice is to use the edge that's already been traced out by, as you say, by the flower petals in the seed of life. So I think this works quite well, if you see what I mean. So although the curvature of the spiral, it's like we have a piece of arc that doesn't change curvature at that point. So we have a piece of arc that's 2 sections long, that's the same curvature as, as the circle here. So theoretically, we've slightly changed the curvature of the spiral by doing that. But I think it works quite nicely. So yes, you could bring your spiral to a central point using those lines you've already got. Okay. And yeah, quite a nice pattern, I think. And then you can decide whether or not to make a feature of the seed of life as well. You could erase it if you didn't want it there anymore, or you could make a feature of it, or just leave the underlying construction lines in as a hint of sort of the skeleton of the pattern. Okay, so I'm going to come back to face to face, and we've got time now for a short break. So hopefully, now what I will say is we'll have what's the time actually? Will we? Yes, I think an hour should be long enough. Yes. So if we say we'll come back at 5 o'clock UK time, so 15 minutes time, but I'm happy if someone has fell behind a bit and would like any assistance getting their 6-pointed spiral finished, then I'm happy to stay on for a sec if anyone would like me to. So just let me know if you are sort of stuck halfway and need to know how to finish. If I wanted, I just see you, Claire. I just see Caroline. If I wanted 4 pathways and 4 flower beds, I'm guessing I would be able to use an octagon for your springing lines. Oh, that's a bit big for my brain. 4 pathways and 4 flower beds. Why wouldn't you use a square, Caroline? I think I'm not visualizing what you want to do.
I think it's because it ends up being 8 pathways, because the pathway, just say the pathway and the flower beds are both 1 meter wide. It's the equivalent of 8 spirals, but but it's 4 pathways and 4.
So your flower beds are going to be spiral.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So the pathways are going to, so it's going to go out. So I think that's how it works. So now I think I have the answer that I asked you on the last course.
It won't be a labyrinth though.
No, it's a quadruple, but it was inspired by labyrinths, because I've got these 4 entrances. So I'll have 4 entrances on the 4 pathways that go round once, and then I'll have 4 flower beds, and they'll all spiral in. And I found a lovely, at some point I'll show you the design and what inspired it.
Okay, fab. Yes, I'd love to see it. This flower bed, when it happens.
When it happens, yes.
Invite me over for a little traipse. See your page. Ista, it's just called, Ista's asked, what do you call this spiral? It's just called a 6-point centre spiral. So essentially each time we've gone up, and I'll type it into the chat. So this is just a 6-point centre spiral. Okay, and you could say with a hexagon key. That's quite nice, with a hexagon key. Okay, and as Caroline was saying, if you started with an octagon, you would have 8 spirally pieces, spirally arms, and so on. Okay, I'll just check the chat for anyone else, and if not, I'll pop the kettle on. I think that's everything. Lovely. Okay, I'm going to pop myself on mute, and I will be back at 5 p.m. UK time. In fact, I'll put that in the chat. What's that? 1700 hours GMT +1. Okay. Hi everyone, I think that's our break time done, and I've just seen a couple of questions in the chat. Dina's answered. I'll just read them out for benefit of people who are watching the video. Vanessa's asked, do you ever need to sharpen the metal point of the compass? I know that paper can wear down scissors. I don't think I've ever heard of that. I think it's because it doesn't encounter much friction really. It's placed, but it's not kind of dragged around. So I think it remains sharp. But if anyone has any information about that to share, that would be great. And then any recommendations for a sharpener that doesn't break all my pencils. So if anyone has recommendations for that. For my coloured pencils, I use this Faber-Castell sharpener, and it has, you can put different size ones in, and I find that's quite good. It had good reviews on Amazon. Let's see if anyone else has shared anything. Dina says, I use a knife and sandpaper to sharpen my good drafting pencils. I know that a lot of people use a knife, and you can get really long lead, really long pointy lead on your pencils if you use a knife. What's the best compass if I want to use a marker pen for metallic pens? This is the eternal question from, who was that? Angela. Right. So my stapler, there are 2 versions of the stapler I recommend. This one, I'll pop them in the chat. This one is the 551. This has quick release bars, but it's not because it's got plastic pieces. I can feel a little bit of a wobble in it actually. So this is less long lasting than this one, which is the 551. It doesn't have quick release bars, but it's all metal. And this feels really sturdy, and I'm really happy with it. It's a more recent acquisition. And these both have a good size pen attachment. It comes with a little cusp. in it, like a little sort of half moon shape, which you can remove and get a bit more width in your pen attachment. But this is good for most normal sized pens. However, I know that a lot of paint pens and gold pens have a fatter barrel, and it's difficult to find a pen attachment for them. Recently, I found this one, which has got definitely a wider pen attachment. I'll put this one in the chat as well. Now this takes, what are they called? Posca 3Ms. So it'll take a 3M, one of these, but it won't take the really fat metallic pens. But this is, my stapler won't fit these, but this is slightly larger and will fit these, but this is the maximum it will take. I have some really fat gold pens, like this Pebeo for artist marker, which won't go in, just too small, just slightly too big. So this is the biggest I've found. There is something, let me put them in the chat. So stapler 552 and 551 are worth looking at. And then this one is, I've just seen Ista's added something. We'll have a look at that in a sec. This is a Maped Helix, and I think it's called a Technic. Let's find the thing. I think it's just called a Technic Compass, Technic Compact. So this is the one with, what's that? Technic Compact. It comes in 2 different sized packs. So actually I didn't need the larger pack. It comes in a smaller pack with less stuff. I don't think I'm going to use the extension bar, but it's all plastic except for a little bit of metal, and doesn't feel like it's the most accurate compass, but it does fit that pen. And then there is something called a Copic clip compass, which I was very excited about. So I'll show, not comic, Copic. Clip. Keeps auto.
And this one, a clip compass.
Yeah, have you got one? Let me just go and grab it. Show. I can't find mine. Where is it? Who was that who said they'd got one?
I did.
Who's that?
Ista.
Ista. Okay, I'm going to come to Ista. Would you mind? Have you got it with you now?
I have it in my hand.
Oh, fantastic. Let me come to you. Let me find you. There you are. Can I spotlight you? Is that okay? Replace spotlight. Why has that not worked? Maybe it's the view I'm in. Oh no, I've gone to some big screen. Let's go speaker. There you are. Now you're big on my screen. Hi, Ista. So let's see this. This is a Copic clip compass.
Can you see this?
Yes, so you can buy the extension bars and you can buy as many pieces as you like, can't you?
Yes, I enlarged it for all my pieces, and you can put anything here in. You see, you can. Wait, I will take here a pencil.
Like a
and then you can clip it.
Yeah. But the only problem with it, I was so excited to find it, and I think it's good for big circles, but it has a minimum radius that you can't get any smaller than.
No, that's true.
So yeah, and so I was so excited, and I got my big fat Pebeo marker in it, And I was drawing a pattern, and then I realised when I got to needing to draw smaller circles, that, oh no, can't draw the small ones. Yeah, so but if you need to do big circles, I think for demonstration purposes, if you're someone who wants to demonstrate geometry on a sort of A2 sheet of paper or something like that, then it's a great find because you can put any markers in it. Thank you, Esther. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. I'm going to go back to gallery a second. I've done something to my Apple screen. So let me, or maybe I haven't. I've lost the chat, is what I've lost. Oh, rats. Sorry, I've got my screen at the, let me try minimizing, and oh, that's better. Oh, there we are, back to what I need to see. The eraser that mostly, spotlight me, someone's just asked, and then we'll move on and we'll have a look at some decorative ideas. So someone's asked, the razor that mostly erases my pen lines. No, Leanne, it's pencil. I did my, you mean erasing my horizon lines?
Yeah, I thought you were using pen. My bad.
I have only to draw my compass, my pencil line. My horizon lines are in pencil, so it's not witchcraft. Sorry. Sorry. So I just check anything else. Smiley C says you fits a Pebeo Gold. It fits the thinner Pebeos, these ones, which are the ones really that I use the most. The 2mm nib. But the 4mm nib is too fat, I think. Okay. One new message and then, okay, brilliant. Okay. Oh, we'll have to trawl through the chat at our leisure later because I'm getting too involved in talk about kit. Right. I'm going to switch to my overhead. Oh, someone's in the waiting room. Just let me do that. And okay, if you've just entered, we've just been talking about equipment. We haven't started the second half of the session. We're about to do so now. Okay, just get my settings where I need them to be. Okay, right. So I'm going to just talk you through some ideas for decorating spirals. And it's just dawned on me that there is something you can add to a double spiral that allows you to colour it in two separate strands. So I shall explain that first. Okay. So this is the double spiral we drew together earlier. And if you put a little S-shaped wiggle right at the, oh no, it's not going to work. Why did I think it would? Yes, it does work. Sorry, this just dawned on me earlier while I was having my cup of tea. You can enclose at the centre by, you'd have to do a really tiny width on your compass or just do it freehand. But hopefully you can see what I'm doing is I'm just making an S-shaped wiggle to enclose those two sections of spiral. No, that hasn't worked, has it? Going the wrong way. Here we are. Let the other way work. No. I completely confused myself. Yes, ignore. Oh no, I think the little one works. A tiny little.
You can do it.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yes, or a yin yang would work too, no?
A little yin yang would be nice. So you can play around with the centre to create something that you could then colour in both strands separately if you wished. So that was just an idea that I thought I'd share. However, one nice way to bring your spirals to life is to use coloured paper and different coloured pens. So this is a two-centred spiral, like the one we've drawn, except I did one spiral in silver and one in gold, and I've done them on some nice, some blue paper. So that's one idea. And then this one's on black paper. This is our hexagon key, our six centre spiral. And you can see that doing it on black, you can't see very well, but it's gold and white. And I made a feature of the seed of life at the centre as well. So that's, oh yeah, you can see a bit better in the light. That's gold and white. So a choice of pen can make a difference to the piece of work. Then this is the one we're going to draw. We're going to draw one. Yeah, we're going to draw this one. I've oriented the spirals just slightly differently for ease, but this is the triple spiral that is basically based on the Newgrange one. The Newgrange one is very slightly different, but this one I've sort of I've outlined the spiral itself in gold. You can just about see, and then I've edged the gold with red marker pen and then smudged it with a wet paintbrush to make it bleed into the centre. So that's quite a nice way of embellishing something that's just one path. So this is unicursal, single path. So that's that idea. Or you can make a feature of the background. So this is a sort of splodgy abstract background that I've put a spiral onto with a bit of gold. So this is the first time I drew the Newgrange one, and I've outlined it as well. I've outlined 3 circles of the seed of life that it sits in. So that's another way of adding a bit of interest. Then this one is an alternate construction. This is the construction I discovered the day before yesterday. And this one can be coloured in as a single piece. So this is the one I'm going to teach as a bonus lesson. Okay, so I just thought I'd show you that one so you can see the difference. It's not entirely clear, but if I started colouring this one in and coloured in the whole thing, one colour, whereas this one has a distinct piece that you can pick out and colour. So that will be the bonus lesson. And then another thing, when we get to labyrinths, we're going to be using a key in the same way we've used a key to construct our spiral. And one thing you can do is you can make a feature of the key. So I've actually outlined the key in gold here. So there are ways of adding interest. This is the Indian Chakra Vyuha labyrinth that is half Cretan, half spiral. It has this lovely spiral at the centre. And what I've done here is I've made a little meandering path of dots, or you could stitch a path through your labyrinth. So you can make a feature of the path rather than the labyrinth, if you see what I mean. So that's another idea. This is our Cologne Cathedral labyrinth that we'll be drawing in the final session, or finishing in the final session. And again, I've used the marker pen and bled the marker pen with a wet paintbrush. So just add a little bit of colour to highlight the path of the labyrinth. And this is our final pattern. This is the Vesica Pisces labyrinth that we'll be drawing together. And this one is just done in gold pen, so on black paper. So choice of paper makes a big difference. And then simplicity can be all you need really to make a lovely piece of work. So there are some ideas. I'm sure you guys will come up with lots more. We'll need a hashtag, so I'll mention the hashtag in the email. I think it's just spirals and labyrinths. Alex has asked, what's the name of the Indian labyrinth? Chakra Vyuha. There we are. Oh, we're also drawing Chartres. Yes, Brenda, but I haven't got an image of that decorated. I have somewhere actually, but I didn't have it to show you. We'll also draw Chartres, you're right. Otherwise we'd have nothing to do in session 3. Okay. Okay, so I think it's time to draw our Newgrange version, inspired by Newgrange, let's say. Okay, so I am just getting everything lined up. So we're going to start with a big seed of life, because the seed of life gives us a triangular underlying grid, which is exactly what we need. So we're going to do a seed of life with a starting radius of 7 centimetres and a vertical orientation line. So let's start with the vertical line. So if you remember back to the start, just adjusting my camera a bit. right back at the start, we made a vertical starting line and we measured 2 points from one side, from the same side of our sheet of paper, halfway in. So let me find, okay. So if you're on A3, and I would suggest A3 is best for this one because it's a big old pattern. If you're on A3, that's 2 marks 15 centimetres in, one in the top half and one at the bottom. And if you're on A4, it's 10.5 centimetres. And then, as always, I would press hard with my pencil to make a bold starting line. And it should really extend the length of your ruler. We're going to make a big old. But you'll do yours nice and light because you may want to erase aspects of it. Okay. This is on A3, Jacqueline, if you have it. If you're on A4, I'll give you, let's have a look at the measurement for A4. So if your A3 radius is 7 centimetres, A4, let me just do, I haven't got it planned, let me do divide by 1.4, 7 divided by 1.4, 5. 5 centimetres, I'll pop it on, 5 centimetre radius. Okay, and we need our centre, so halfway up, you're probably all ahead of me. So measuring from the bottom, find your centre, 21 centimetres up on A3 or 15 centimetres up on A4. Okay. And then I'm on A3, so they're in the chat, Jacqueline. I'm on A3, so 7 centimetres starting radius. The measurements for halfway in, on A3, 15 centimetres in, top and bottom. And if you're on A4, 10.5 centimetres in, top and bottom. And then 15 up, no, 21 up on A3 and 15 up on A4. Okay, get that centre mark, and then I've lost all my compasses after all that equipment chat. Here it is. A nice light, large seed of life. If anyone needs to pause, get their line on, let me know. Can't find my home. There it is. So 7 centimetres if you're on A3, 5 centimetres if you're on A4. Eyeball that starting mark, try and be plumb on the vertical line. First circle on, nice and light. And then, as at the start, we have a vertically orientated seed, so our starting circles are top and bottom, north and south. Check you're going through the centre. Big old seed of life. On both ends of the spectrum. Southmost circle, check it's kissing the one you've just drawn. And then horizontal Vesica Pisces, almond shapes. And so the Vesica Pisces tips are our final 4 centres. Trying to get as accurate as possible with that little compass point. Check it's going through the 2 circle centres. And then you're happy. Circle number 4. Move your way around. So our spiral doesn't quite fill our seed of life, but we use the seed of life to both define the path width of the spiral and to give us the symmetry, the threefold symmetry that we need. So I'm going to share this video with last year's participants because I've done it in a slightly different way than I did last year, and I think it's a better way. Last year, we started at the centre of our, essentially we're going to have 3 spirals, 3 double-centred spirals, one here, one here, one here, and they're going to be angled so that they each so that they're rotated, and then they're going to meet each other. So last time I did this, I figured out exact starting measurements that would allow your spirals to meet, because I hadn't properly got my head around how to construct it. But of course, if you're just a slight increment off your starting radius, then your spirals don't meet. So it was all a bit of a disaster, and nobody's spirals, including mine, were meeting. And then I remember saying during the session, actually, maybe we should start where they meet and work our way in. And so this year I've devised a method where we start where they meet and we work our way in. And so they will always meet. So our next job is to draw our axes on, and we're going to have a triangle axis. So pencil again. You may or may not want to erase this. I've lost my pencil now. Here we are. And we're going to use 3 petal tips of our daisy wheel. The bottom, left and right, and the very top. And we're going to join those petal tips up to create a triangle. We're going to extend that triangle. I think let's best do it now. So this first base of my triangle that I've drawn on with my bottom 2 petal tips, I'm going to extend it out to the edge of the seed of life on the left. I'll just pull my ruler down. So base of triangle extended out to the left. And then I'm going to do my left-hand side of the triangle, going from bottom left petal tip up through the very top tip and out to the edge of my seed of life. So from here, past that petal tip and out to the edge of the seed of life. So you'll probably recognise something similar to the hexagon, except in a different way. We're actually creating the axes of rotation of each spiral. And the final one will go from the topmost petal tip down through the bottom right petal tip and out to the edge of the seed of life. Now, if anyone needs me to explain that again, please say. Yeah. Oh, broken my pencil. There's evidence, Leanne. It's a pencil. And now what I'm going to do, because actually they're going to get in the way, is I'm going to erase, what have I done with my eraser? Lost that now. I'm going to erase sections of my starting vertical. So the bit where it emerges out of the top of the triangle, I don't actually need. So you might erase a little bit of your seed of life while you're doing it, but that's okay. So I'm just going to take that piece at the top off. I need it going through my petals. And I'm also going to take the piece of the bottom off, or at least lighten it a bit. Okay. And then I'm going to add 2 more diameters. I'll pause a sec. I feel like I'm going too fast. What I've done by erasing those top and bottom sections, I've got a piece of the diameter of a circle that just goes through 2 petals. I'm now going to add that same diameter across these 2 petals, top right to bottom left, and top left to bottom right. And then these now are all the underlying grid lines we need. And try to make sure you're going through the centre as well when you draw these diameters in. And now I'm going to switch to some different colours. You don't need to unless you feel it might be helpful. If you want this to just be a kind of, the only thing is you have to keep changing your radius, maybe not ideal. I'll do in different colours, but it's probably best that you do in one. Oh. I just need to remember my new way of doing this. So the vertices of our triangle are 3 centres, one for a spiral that will sit at the top, one for a spiral that sits on the left, and one for a spiral that sits on the right. They will actually be centre number 2. So if you remember, we're doing a 2-centred spiral. So we're going to need 2 centres here, 2 centres here, and 2 centres here. But the one that sits on the triangle vertices is centre number 2. So that will be for the underneath semicircles each time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my top circle and I'm going to turn it, and you may want to do the same, so that its springing line is sitting horizontally. So hopefully that makes sense to people. And then essentially, it's like that's my horizontal starting line, and I'm going to draw a 2-centred spiral here. But we need to find a starting radius. So I'm going to place my compass point. In fact, I might call this number 2. This is my point number 2. I'm going to place my compass there on that point, and I'm going to open my compass out till it meets that diameter that bisects the petal on the side of the triangle. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a piece of arc that just sits inside the triangle. So when I swing to the other side, it should meet the same position on the other side of the triangle. I'm going to put a piece of arc just sitting inside the triangle. I think I might zoom down a bit. wrong way. Okay, so you can just see, and I'm going to do the same from each of the vertices of the triangle, but I'm not going to move my paper around each time. So I'm just going to move my compass down to the next vertex and put that piece of arc inside the triangle. And then finally, the last remaining vertex of the triangle. And we've created this lovely sort of curvy triangle at the centre. Now don't move this radius. Now I've designed this so that the width of the petal is 2 paths. It just felt sensible to use measurements that are already inherent in the underlying grid, rather than sort of use an arbitrary measurement. So, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to look back at this circle here with the horizontal springing line, and I'm going to move out to the left from point number 2, move to the left into the triangle, past that centre and out to the edge of the petal. And I'm going to place my compass point there, and I'm going to make a little notch next, just in front of the 2, next to the 2. And what I've done is I've transferred my path width from here to here and created point number 1. So now I have my 2 point centres that are a path width apart. So I'll just go through that again. This was my original radius, which went from point number 2 to meet the middle of the petal. Turn my compass round, and this time I've gone to the left-hand side of the petal, where it's sitting on the triangle, on the side of the triangle, and I've made a notch, which is a path width away from number 2, but sitting inside the triangle. So now I have my key, and I'm going to do the same now on each of my vertices. So I might label, I think I will twist my paper around. So I'm going to twist my paper around each time until I have a horizontal starting line. This is point number 2. And in exactly the same move, compass point on the left-hand edge of the petal. Make a notch for point number 1. Okay, and then I'm going to spin around one more time. Get my final springing line horizontal. This on the right is my final number 2. I'm going to move to the outer left of the petal to make a mark 1 path width away, which is number 1. And from here on in, we just kind of need to concentrate really, but we're doing above, below, above, below, above, below. However, I think that because we want to preserve decision, I don't know whether it's better to complete a whole spiral at a time or transfer or do parts, work our way round and do each arc in each of the 3. I think I might.
I would do each arc, Clarissa, because
So do this arc and then turn it around, do this one and then this one.
yeah, because I think it's going to be the same radius.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I just worried that the spinning of the paper might. But I think, yes, let's go with that. That's how I did it last time and everyone kept up. So thank you for that feedback. So I'm going to start then with one of my springing lines, horizontal. This is the first one. And I'm just going to double check. Yeah, the radius we've already got. But on key number 1. So theoretically, it should reach the outer edge of your petal. And we're just doing a semicircle in the top half. You will notice it doesn't follow the arc of the seed of life because it's got a different centre. Oh, I was going to do this in red. My plans have been scuppered. In fact, you know, I'm going to do it in my black Sharpie so it's a bit bolder. There we go. Okay, so I'm just redrawing that. So it was from point number 1 because it's a semicircle sitting on top. Okay. And then, as Caroline suggested, because it's the same radius, we don't want to keep switching our radiuses. I'm now going to rotate my page. I'm just going to spin clockwise until I get the next springing line, horizontal. Top right, point number 1. And do a semicircle in the top, at the top of the springing line, top half. And then the final twist around again to get the third springing line, horizontal. Compass on point 1. Out to edge of petal. And this is the final line of this radius. Is it? Let me double check. Yes. Now we are going to stay at compass point 1. Just this once to start us off. We're not doing the switch. So once you've got your first 3 arcs on, staying at compass point 1, we're now going to reduce our radius to the centre of the petal, where it will meet this initial arc that we placed inside the triangle. So I'm going to reduce my radius. I'm at compass point number 1, reducing my radius now to the centre of the petal, where it picks up that piece of arc, the first piece of arc I drew in the triangle. But because I'm at compass point number 1, I'm going on top of the springing line and stopping when I get to the other side. Overshot a bit. So this next series of arcs are all from compass point number 1, but with this new reduced radius. I'm going to twist the paper around, get that same orientation again. Number 1. Arc on. Horizontal springing line. I'll pause and quite groovy already. Now we're going to work from point number 2. So point number 2 is underneath the springing line. Oh. If you're with me, then placing compass point on point number 2 on a horizontal springing line, you should find that hopefully it can pick up the outer spiral from the top. It should also, you may want to draw in the air for this. As you come round and down, it should also kiss the outer spiral on a neighbouring circle. Okay, might need to make a very slight adjustment, but it's probably best not to adjust too much really. I think you might create a series of adjustments that need doing. So, oh, what happened there? Did I wobble? What did happen there? I've had a wobble. There we go. And I'm going to want to keep this radius. I'm going to twist my paper around. Get a springing line horizontal again, and I'm going from point number 2. And underneath semicircle. One more to do.
When you do this third one, Clarissa, could you just point out which circle or spiral bit you're kissing?
Okay, so here's my point number 2 on my horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
If I follow down that side of the triangle, I meet a piece of spiral from my next door spiral.
Oh, okay. It's this, but it's also the circle as well.
Oh,
Really.
it is the edge of the circle as well,
Yeah.
just for a little while before the path diverges.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you.
Now, if you're feeling confident, you can probably work your way through switching between 1 and 2, doing aboves and belows. But I will now talk through, because I've done my 3 below semicircles. So it's time to reduce our radius. You can either, actually, let's go back to point number 1. I think let's be systematic. So back to point number 1. And now I want to pick up from the piece of spiral I've just drawn. So I need to reduce my radius. I also need to reduce my pen. So I'm back to point number 1 now, because we're going to do an overhead one. And I'm picking up from the underneath semicircle to do an over the top one. Now we can work on the same spiral, because this measure is the same measure from point number 2. So we can just move across to point number 2 with that same measure and complete an underneath semicircle at the same time, quite pleasingly. I'm going to demonstrate that again on the next springing line. So turning the springing line round till it's horizontal. Remember, I started on 1 to do an above the line. You've already got your measure. And then I can move straight to 2 to complete a below the line. And then final springing line is horizontal. Compass point on 1 to start, above the line, and then on 2 below. And now I've got a remeasure to do. So I think I'm always going to go to 1 to remeasure. So back onto 1, reduce my radius to pick up the piece of spiral. Remember to dip down just to see if you're kind of landing where you need to land. There we are. Top semicircle. Move to 2 for the bottom. Almost hypnotic, going boggle-eyed. Now, because we started on the outside, which means that our spirals meet, which is really important. They merge seamlessly into each other. We might not end up so neatly on the inside. But I thought it was quite nice to use the width of the petal as our path width. It sort of felt quite neat. Otherwise, we'd have had to use an arbitrary measurement. Okay. Have I done? Yes, I think I've done all 3 on this round. So again, back to point 1 to remeasure, to reduce. Top semicircle, point 2 for bottom. Point 1 for top. Bottom. And if you're approaching the middle and aren't quite sure how to finish, I'm getting there. Oh, Dina. Have to have another go. I can stay on at the end, Dina, and have a look if you're unsure where you've gone wrong. Okay. Actually, it's not bad. I think because I'm using a thicker pen than when I drew it with pencil, I think I might actually land plumb on, but no, not quite actually. So it would be really nice if our final semicircle joined our 2 keys together, but I think it doesn't quite, but I don't think it matters at all. So you'll see when you've got to this stage that you have enough space for a tiny little circle, semicircle rather. So remember, we're always adjusting our radius to pick up the piece of spiral that we want to continue. So move to point 1, pick up the piece of spiral on the left-hand side, semicircle, and 1.2, semicircle underneath. Now, I might show, just before we end, I might go back and show the image of the Newgrange spiral, because they've left this open. They haven't put the little S-shaped squiggle. On the carvings on the rock at the front of the tomb, there's an S-shaped squiggle in to define the curves, but in the triple spiral, they're just left open, I think. We'll have a look. So again, rotating round to get a horizontal. Going from point 1 at the top. Point 2 at the bottom. Okay. is a pretty complicated pattern, especially if you're a first-time geometer. I hope I haven't put you off. There we are. Okay. And it can be quite nice. I'm going to do it just because it makes the spiral pop out. If you shade in that nice curvy triangle at the center, that's a kind of hollow gap. And then I think you can see more clearly how the spirals merge into each other. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to turn it into a labyrinth if you wish. So because it's unicursal, one path, if you colour it in, you end up colouring the whole thing one colour. But you can make use of that to make a labyrinth, because labyrinths are unicursal, one path. How to finish the centre. Angela, I just, yours, because my pen's thick, I think I've landed plumb on my next door point, but I think if you're doing it in nice sharp pencil, you won't. Let me find the one I did in a thinner pen. So you might find that your final small semicircle at the top and at the bottom hasn't landed nicely on your key either side. And I don't know how to do that, to be honest. We took this measure as our path width. If we'd taken a slightly larger measure here, then we might have landed on top of our key. But we've just landed a little bit outside of it, but I don't think it's a problem at all. And you just literally finish. You don't really have to do anything to finish. It's just a small semicircle on top and a small semicircle on the bottom. And then we'll have a look at the Newgrange spiral, but it's just been left like that. So sort of loose ends, two loose ends. Okay. Okay, so before we have a look back at the spiral, I found these two nice print-offs online, which show how a similar spiral has been turned into a labyrinth. So this one, I'll put it in the orientation that we've got. So this is in the orientation where you have one at the top and two at the bottom. All that someone's done is just kind of made an entrance. And if you just make an entrance somewhere, then you'll find that if you trace out with your finger the path, you can either go left or right. You'll find that you end up having to go all the way around the pattern before you get back to the start, which is essentially how a labyrinth works. So make an entrance anywhere you like, and you have a labyrinth, which is quite nice. However, you may want to end up in the centre. It's quite nice to have a centre in the labyrinth, and then you have a little pause of reflection and then turn around and wind your way back out again. So you can actually turn the centre curvy triangle into the centre of the labyrinth. And to do that, essentially, I might demonstrate it on this one. Essentially, you have to close off the entrance in one direction. So you might want to, I'll show you this one. So here's this one. Here's the entrance, and they've closed off the route going right so that you have to go in left. I've closed it off up here. And then when you wind your way round, all the way round each of the three, you end up back in the centre with no way out because you've closed that route. And so then you pause, have a little bit of reflection time, muster your energy, and traverse all the way back round to exit. Now, what I did yesterday was I thought it'd be quite nice to use the pieces of the seed of life to determine those entrance marks. So if I enter here, I haven't put the entrance in, but say I entered my labyrinth here. If you close off this little piece here, using the edge of the petal of the seed of life, then instead of being able to go up there, I'd have to actually come down, go all the way round, up round this one and back, up round this one and back. And then as I come here, I can use the edge of my petal in my seed of life to take me in to the centre. So I would erase this section here. And that lets me into the centre and have a rest, and then all the way back out again. So I just thought it'd be quite nice to use the underlying grid to create the cut-off mark and the entrance to the centre. Hopefully I've explained that all right. It's quite difficult to explain. Okay. Might be useful actually for me to share this, so I think I'll scan this in and share this in the folder. Okay. Okay, the last thing I want to do, well, I come back face to face, and I just want to have a quick last look at the Newgrange. We've gone over time. Oh no, not really. Well, we want a bit of sharing time, but not doing too badly, my track record. So I'm going to share my screen, and we'll have a quick look at the Newgrange spiral, back through these lovely spirals. Now, the Newgrange one, clearly it's hand drawn, but it's an enclosed double spiral, like a big figure of 8, with a tacked on the side third spiral. So it doesn't have a centre at the centre of the 3 like ours does. In fact, that's an entrance. So it might be quite a nice challenge to figure out how you would draw this one geometrically. You enter at the centre, and then it takes you round this one and back out into this. And this is like an enclosed one, a bit mind-boggling, really. Yeah, but there you are. That's your homework, your extension challenge, is to create this sort of third leg on the spiral. Okay, so I'm going to come to gallery view, and okay, nothing in the chat. Right, has anyone got anything that they would like to share? Be lovely to see if anyone has. You might not have a triskelion, you might need the video again for that, where you can pause and rewind me. I can see Terry. I'll come to Terry first. Terry, I'm going to spotlight you. Oh, the view I'm in doesn't show me. I need to be in speaker view. That's it. Oh, you did it. Looks brill. Fantastic. Oh, what a relief. Even if it's just you that's done it, Terry. Brilliant. Thank you.
It's only my second go at this stuff with you, my second class, so I'm very chuffed with that. That's very good.
Brilliant. Well done. It's a challenge, that was.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, I am going to, well, I'm trying to get used to this. Let me just put my spotlight back. Okay, so let me, it's not working how I want it to work. Come on, Zoom. Does anyone else like to share? I can see Angela. Going to add spotlight to Angela and replace mine, remove mine. There we are. Oh, you did it as well. Brilliant. Hey. Is that Angela who signed up last minute?
Yeah, I'm
Well
always
done.
labyrinth.com. Yeah.
Well, well done. You obviously had some kit already.
I did the one that you did before with the church window.
Oh, the medieval church geometry.
And I loved that so much. I'd saved it on Eventbrite and I thought, oh, I'll come back.
Brilliant. Okay. Anyone else? Oh, my Mac needs charging up. There we are. I can see Smiley C. I'm going to come and spotlight you, Smiley C. Oh, that's fab. A bit of colour. Lovely. Thank you for sharing.
A bit of colour.
Little bit of colour. We all need a little bit of colour. Thank you. So everybody, take note. You can colour in your 6-fold one. I can see Yvette next. I'll come to Yvette. Oh, nice. You've got some of that grey paper.
Yeah, yeah.
Lovely.
It's silver pen, but can't really tell.
Yeah, you can tell it looks great. Really nice. Oh, thank you for sharing. Who else have I got? I can see Japleen. I'll come to Japleen next and then John. Yay, success. And did you put a little wiggle at the centre? You've just made a really tiny, you could make a tiny little wiggle there, couldn't you?
One of my spirals needed fidgeting for some reason, but the other two were fine. I don't know why.
Maybe it was in the construction of your seed of life right at the start. Maybe one of the petal tips wasn't quite in the right place.
In the right place, yeah.
Sort of put everything out of a line. But it looks good.
This one, I could actually, the yin yang actually made it perfectly.
Oh,
rubbed it
nice
out.
idea. Little yin yang at the centre. Thank you, Kathleen. That's lovely.
It's okay.
Who did I say next? John. I'll come to John next. Hi, John. Ah, nice work.
Wonderful class.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Cool, very
and,
cool.
And the person who put that idea in there about a garden path, turning this into garden paths, it's a really lovely idea.
It is cool. Thank you, John. Okay, who else have I got? Anyone else waving bits of paper at me? I can see Fabiana.
Hello.
Hi, I'm going to spotlight you. Yay.
I have to correct here the center a little more.
Okay. Yes, you've got one wider and one narrower. But it looks, I think maybe you didn't go from your center. Maybe the final semicircle, you went from the end of the semicircle, not from the center, from the numbered center, perhaps. It looks good though, Fabiana. Nice work.
Thank you.
Marie, is that Marie? You got something to share? Let me spotlight you. Yay, another one. Loads of success. And you've got the little wiggles. Excellent. Little wiggly centers. They're like little worms having a hug. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. So that's an idea for people for finishing off their centers. Thank you, Marie. I'm just having a look round to see if there's anyone else. Oh, I've got a whole page too. Hang on. I can see Isabel. And then Dina. I'll come to Dina after Isabel. Hi, Isabel. Ah, it looks really good. Lovely. Thank you. Really neat work. You've nearly all done it. Brilliant. Who did I say I was going to do after Isabel? Dina. Coming to Dina.
I'm not showing you my horrible drawing. However, people were talking about smaller compasses. This is what you've been using.
Yeah.
I found this little guy.
Is that a little rot ring?
It is. It's got a ruling pen attachment and a pencil attachment, and that is as wide as it gets. So for those of us who like to do smaller work, this goes really tiny.
I'm just going to pop that in the chat. You can.
It was from Mr. Penn.
Ah, from Mr. Penn. You can find them on Amazon as well, and you can find them in a set with a larger compass and various other little bits. It's by a German company called Rot Ring, and they are kind of real experts in constructing and technical drawing equipment. Thank you, Dina. That's really useful. Okay. I'm just going to check. I seem to have 2 pages of video. So I'm just coming between the two to see if there's anyone else who wants to share. I think that's everyone. Fantastic. I'm so pleased, and I think I've got some people who were perhaps a little nervous or unsure at the start and have managed to construct their spirals and their labyrinth. So that's brilliant. Okay, peeps. I will stay on for a couple of minutes if anyone has any other questions, but if not, I'll see you same time next week for some labyrinths, some Cretan labyrinths and that beautiful spiral labyrinth. So I shall see you then. Have a lovely evening or morning or afternoon where you are. See you next week. Bye. I'll just check the chat, see if there's any queries. I think I've got a few of you left. That was really fun.
I just wanted to say thank you very much, Clarissa. Fantastic.
Oh, I'm so pleased you enjoyed it. This is right up your street, isn't it, Caroline?
Yes, yes. And yeah, I'll have a think sometime during the course of the whole thing and see if I can get that. Is it easy to draw an octagon?
Yes, it's essentially, you know, the construction of the square.
Yes.
With the 4 petals.
Yes.
Essentially, the edges. Yeah, if you can draw 2 inner squares, a dynamic and a static.
Oh, right. Yes.
And
Okay.
you've got then the points of your octagon.
Oh, okay. I'll have
Makes
a think
sense.
about that. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
So the construction of the square, which we've done a couple of times before.
Yes. Thank you.
Brill. Okay. Okay, peeps, I'm going to, if no one else has any queries, did you want to ask something, Fabiana?
I was trying to correct it, and I think it's good.
Can I spotlight you just so I can see you? Oh yes, I think you've done it.
Yes.
Good, brilliant.
It's better. Thank you, Clarissa.
That's my pleasure, Fabiana. Oh, I didn't put the hashtag in. I think it's just Spirals and Labyrinths on Instagram. I think nobody else has it.
Yes, I used that.
You've used that. Does it take
Yes.
you to other people's spirals?
Hashtag.
Labyrinths. Spelling it is difficult. Yes, that's the stuff from last year. Brilliant. So we'll use the same hashtag this year and add. There's lots of inspiration there. Great. I'll pop it in the chat now and I'll mention it in the email. Hashtag, where is the hashtag? Oh, you can tell I'm getting used to my Mac. I don't know where anything is. Just write hashtag spirals and labyrinths, all one word. Okay. All right then, everyone, I'm going to sign off. Go and have my tea and see Bertie. But have a lovely time, have a lovely evening, and see you in a week. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Bye. Bye, Meg. Bye, Dawn. Bye, Janina.